You got your tree up yet, Bear?
I've got a miniature tree up.
Like a Charlie Brown tree? Or?
I
literally have like one of those Charlie Brown
I saw
trees.
something that you had a tree actually.
Though, yeah.
Oh, well, but I saw a
I put
tree.
up a real one this year.
That's what I saw. Yeah, well, just make sure it doesn't get too dry because it's very flammable.
Got a lot of water.
Okay,
got a lot of water
right.
in the basement.
Mine I don't need to water because it's made out of bulbs, so it's nothing that can really spark, I don't think.
Well, it's that time of year, but it's also a big time of year for
Bucky.
All kinds of good Badger stuff,
A lot of stuff going on.
The Packers, maybe they're back. Maybe the
bandwagon
people can take a step back from the ledge for a minute.
They can, yes.
And winter high school stuff kind of getting into its pre-Christmas groove here for a couple of weeks. So
starting this Saturday, we kind of start getting into the other sports besides basketball, swim and wrestling and some other things, yes.
We'll tackle it all. It's on this week's episode of Extra Points. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Extra Points. I'm Eric Schmoldt. This is John Barry over here, and we're here to break down all your local sports again this week. And I think
break it down.
The first thing on everybody's mind's got to be this Big Ten championship.
Ooh, boy, yeah. Bucky going to Indianapolis.
Wisconsin versus Penn State in Indianapolis, Saturday night, 7 or so on Fox. And
if you would have bet $1 on that before the season that those two teams would play in the Big Ten championship game, you would be a millionaire right now, I bet.
Would you?
Because nobody would have had those two teams.
I wonder if they
playing.
had put odds on stuff
Wisconsin,
like that.
Doubt it with their schedule, and Penn State, the fact that they're in with Ohio State and Michigan, I can't believe anybody would have thought those two teams would be playing. But hey, good for them, and hopefully, and if it's the Badgers, hopefully a win Saturday might get them into the top 4. I mean, I think some things got to happen. I think Washington and Clemson, one of those two has got to lose, but I can't believe if it gets to the point where Wisconsin wins that they would take Michigan, Ohio State over the Big Ten champion. I just can't believe they would do that.
Well, I don't think they would do that either. I think Michigan's kind of on the outside looking in after that game the other night.
Right.
But,
Clemson and Washington are your other two.
Clemson and Washington, I would think. I guess if one of them loses, that would obviously, if one of them loses and Wisconsin wins, then all of a sudden I feel a little bit better about the chances right now. And I mean, it seems like when you listen to all the experts about this stuff, I mean, Alabama seems clearly in.
Yeah, they're in.
Even if they lose,
they're
in. It seems
Ohio
like
State seems
people
like they're a
seem to
lock.
think they're in, and
yeah.
Even though they're not the conference champion, they lost to Penn State. That's their only loss. I guess the only way I could see them not being in is something crazy were to happen, is if Penn State were to win, and Washington and Clemson. One of the things they were talking about is that there's like 3 major criteria, and it's head-to-head conference championships and best wins or best. And if Penn State wins and those 2 other conference champions win, then if you're looking at Penn State versus Ohio State in that situation, then Penn State holds 2 of the 3.
Yeah.
So that seems like I think probably all these other conferences are hoping for Wisconsin to win because it would give their champions a lot better case for making the Final Four. But it's just kind of interesting. We've got this whole week to sit here and break these possibilities down.
We'll know a lot more on Friday night because Washington plays Colorado on Friday night. And obviously we're all pulling for the Buffaloes, who are another good story. I mean, they were, 2-9 last year, something ridiculous, and they've turned it around. But I think realistically, if we don't get in the Final Four but go to the Rose Bowl, I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. But I would like to get in the Final Four just to get in, to say we're in it.
Well, I mean, to say we've been in the 2 Final Fours in basketball, and now to get in the Final Four in football would be something special.
I mean, again, when you look back to where that entire program was, not just the football team and the basketball, just in the entire UW athletic program in the last 20 years ago. Take away men's hockey, there was nothing going on up there. Cross country obviously did well, but I mean that's why it's so cool and why it's such a good story. But I think
that's a hard one for me to grasp because that was before I was.
Yeah, that was before you were there. But I lived the Don Morton era. I lived the Steve Yoder era. I was there for all that. So, and that's what's great about it now is that we are one of the elite programs, and obviously Alvarez has a lot to do with that. But I think more than anything is when you look at this weekend, let's just beat Penn State. You know what? We can't control anything else. If we don't get in, we don't get in. We're still going to finish 11-2. going into a bowl game, and again, nobody thought Wisconsin would be 11-2. Wasn't even sure they'd get to a bowl game. So I'm going to enjoy it. Would I like to get in the Final Four? Yes. If we don't, am I going to be very upset? Probably
Maybe.
not.
Are you going to pound this table next week?
If it comes down to Michigan, Ohio State both ahead of us, I will have a problem with that. Just because, what's the point then of having a conference championship game? It doesn't serve any purpose then.
Plus, I mean, you look back at those two games, and they were both one-possession games. One was an overtime. Beagle didn't play in those games, which is a huge loss to a defense that still stood on its head.
Right.
But still, you're missing your best defensive player. I mean, they've got some arguments, I think, for sure, and it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. And I think some of the other conversations I had with people this week is just, wouldn't it be kind of nice to see this thing go to 8? And maybe it's just because the way that things are shaking out this year, that we have all these teams that kind of belong, and the fact that Wisconsin's in it that makes us think, 8 sounds good. But the more I think about it, the more it's like you could have the 5 conference champions, you could put a non-power 5, the best non-power 5 in there, and then take 2 at-large teams.
2 at-large teams, and this year obviously
a lot of that would be solved this year. I think
it would be.
You'd still probably have one Big Ten team that maybe would say, we should be in, but. You'd probably end up with 3 Big Ten teams in it this year.
Well, and I think that the sad part is right now, other than Alabama, I don't think anybody's playing better than USC. I mean, USC has been lights out, and I was hoping they would have gotten a chance to play Colorado instead of or play Washington instead of Colorado, but Colorado hung on to beat Utah. But I think 8 teams. You're right. I think you could certainly add that would put Wisconsin, probably Oklahoma if they win. USC. I mean, that would open up the door for more teams, and then you're dealing with more bowl games. I mean, you'd have
and players are playing another game in a day where you're trying not to play so many and keep yourself somewhere you can make money in the NFL and things like that. But
I get it.
It's hard. It's hard not to think about this year with the way things are shaking out.
But like I say, if we win Saturday but don't get in the Final Four, end up in the Rose Bowl,
right?
Perfectly fine.
If you would have said Rose Bowl before the season started,
no way.
No one would have had any problems with that.
And it looks like Bart Houston will probably be behind center because Hornibrook is concussed. And the way Bart's played, I'm not sure he shouldn't start anyway.
Right, he's been playing pretty well.
A
guy that
I agree.
Don't necessarily hadn't root for. No. I've been saying go with Hornibrook the whole way because you just might as well get the guy ready for next year. But I think Houston's earned these spots, and even in games where he hasn't started, he's come in and led them on scoring drives and things like that. So give the senior a shot to go out on top.
And I think we can beat Penn State. And they don't. I know they played well, but they got killed by Michigan. They lost to Pittsburgh. They've been playing well recently, and when you look at Ohio State and that was their signature win, I thought Wisconsin had Ohio State beat too, and just couldn't make enough plays at the end and lost in overtime. So should be a good game. Bucky's favored by 3, and I'd like to come out of there with a nice double touchdown.
Maybe they can do what they did to Nebraska a few years ago.
Oh, that would be nice. That would be nice, and not what Ohio State did to us a couple years ago. I don't want to see.
We've seen both ends of that. I guess.
We have.
On the basketball court, we're getting a sense of what the Badgers are going to be. Since we sat here last week, the Badgers had that struggle against North Carolina out in Hawaii, but they get a couple more chances to prove themselves this week. We're shooting this before they play Syracuse on Tuesday, so we'll see how that shakes out. And they have Oklahoma at home on Saturday. So 2 teams that, every year are pretty darn good teams. Some years better than others, but Syracuse is ranked. So they've had some ups and downs already this year.
And if you think about it, if you go back to last year when Gard took over, that win at Syracuse on the road last year kind of started that whole ball rolling where they really started to play well. And, now a chance to play them at the Kohl Center. Oklahoma handled them pretty easily last year on the road. A chance to play them at home this year. So,
they don't have Buddy anymore.
They don't have Buddy Hield anymore, no. But I think when you look at Wisconsin, I mean, right now, they're still trying to find an identity.
Which is kind of weird to me. Because
it is. With
all the guys back, you'd think they would kind of know that. But
Nigel's kind of been non-existent. He played well against Prairie View A&M, but big deal. I don't put much stock in that. But let's see how he plays this week, and let's see how the rest of them handle things. And I think they've figured out who their role players are going to be. Certainly Iverson's one of them, and but
Demetric Trice.
Yeah, he's looked good, and this is a good week for them. Those are 2 good programs, Syracuse and Oklahoma, and then they come back with a really, really good Idaho State team.
Oh, are they that good? Yeah,
Idaho
I've done
State.
a lot of research on
I have
them.
nothing
The
on
Vandals.
Idaho State. They play them a week from Wednesday. Yeah.
They're the Vandals. I know
They
that
are.
much. That's about as far as I go.
All right.
We'll learn more about them. One more college note: UW-Whitewater rolls on. They get to play at home again. John Carroll, the team that
beat Mount
Union. So now,
right.
they got Drew Patterson back. They've used both quarterbacks effectively still to this point. I think they're getting healthier, which is they need to be at this stage.
And probably their best performance of the season and beating Wittenberg. And obviously this is the time of year you want to be playing your best. So
hopefully that means
hopefully
they're
keep
trending that way, because there was a time there where we were like, I don't know if they're going to be able to hang on with some of these injuries, but it seems like they're getting guys back. So hopefully that continues to be the case. That game's at noon over at Perkins Stadium on Saturday.
Yeah.
So you can go to that one, then you can go home and watch the Badgers at night.
Right, that's right.
If you're so inclined to take in
the
a
Badgers.
whole bunch of
Badger
college
men play
football.
Oklahoma at noon. You can tape that and go watch the Warhawks and come home and sit on your recliner and wait for Bucky to
That'd be a heck of a sports
take
Saturday,
down the
really.
Nittany Lions. Yes.
You might even get home in time to watch the basketball before you watch the football.
Clearly.
Man.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
There you go. We had penciled in your whole Saturday.
You got your Saturday figured out.
You don't need to make any other plans. Just do all that.
Do it all.
Packers, Monday Night Football, baby. They they needed that.
They did.
Obviously, I think McCarthy said that after the game. A road win, and it's kind of been a mixed bag of reactions. I think people are saying, like, well, if they could do that against the Eagles, how come they couldn't do that against some of these other teams? The Eagles, they're not terrible.
But they've landed. The Eagle has landed because they aren't as good as they were earlier in the year.
No, and I mean, when you look at the teams that have exploited the Packers over the last few weeks, those teams had quarterbacks and receivers that could take the top off a little bit, and the Eagles didn't really have that. And I don't think the Texans have that, because Brock Osweiler's been terrible this year. And the Seahawks haven't been great offensively.
Nope.
And the Bears and the Vikings certainly haven't been anything to. I mean, so they're set. I guess what I'm trying to say is they're set up here over the next few weeks.
They are.
To really, I think, turn the season around if they keep up do what they did Monday night.
It's Houston at home. Brock Osweiler's been way short of expectations. The money they're paying him, he's done nothing. And then you got Seattle coming in, and I think for Green Bay, Detroit has to go to New Orleans this weekend. Minnesota's playing Dallas at home on Thursday night. So, a chance for them to still. I think you've got to win that division to get in the playoffs. I don't think the wild card's going to come out of the NFC North. I don't think that's going to happen, because I think with the Giants playing well. The Redskins, the other teams that are 500, I think you're going to see that's going to be one of the two wild cards. But a win's a win for the Packers. They still need to get that running game going, because let's face it, when the weather turns and it gets colder, and that you got to have a ground game. And right now,
they didn't even try to run the ball.
Green Bay doesn't have one, no. And well,
Rodgers, he's pretty good running the ball.
And when Seattle comes to town in a couple of weeks, with that secondary that they have, you're going to have to be able to run the ball a little bit.
But it's just kind of funny, because if they would have lost that game Monday night, we'd be sitting here saying basically the season was over, I would think.
Yeah.
And instead we're sitting here saying they could still win the division. So
yeah, they could.
And kind of a lot really tipped.
They got to run the table probably, but certainly possible.
I don't know if they do, though, because
one loss.
If you lost to Seattle, it wouldn't be the end of the world, because you would still have the Bears, the Vikings, and the Lions all there to make games up on. Mm-hmm. So it's still kind of there.
It is, and I think when you look at it, I think a lot of things last night, just a big sigh of relief more than anything. Not only to the players and the coaches, but the fans were like, okay, this is kind of more of what we expected. McCarthy has been on the hot seat, and they just needed a win to kind of just calm people down, and as Roger said last year, just relax, let us play and we'll take care of things. And they did last night, but it's another game this Sunday against a very beatable Houston team that's, I think, in first place.
If you don't win that one, then you might as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing if you can't beat the Texans at home. I don't even think anybody from the Texans division deserves a playoff spot at this point. That division is awful.
It's terrible.
How about on the high school front? Still mostly just kind of been in basketball mode, but we get hockey, we get wrestling, some swim.
Yep.
I mean, we get a couple of weeks here before the Christmas break to really kind of get things going.
Well, and I found it interesting last night that Monday night that Evansville, which I think came into the season ranked 4th or 5th in the smaller school divisions, played a Lakeside program that's always going to be good. Lakeside Lutheran is just a great program. And the Blue Devils, behind 41 points from Brennan Banks, came back and won, and
down 14
and beat Menasha in their opener, and a good start for the Blue Devils, who are still without a couple of starters. So
I was going to say they're still kind of getting some young guys in the mix. And we'll see what this. I'm sure the Lakeside team's going to be good, but they started 4 sophomores I think last night, so they're young too. So.
And the freshman for Evansville had 12 last night. So I mean, it's early. A little concerned right now with the Janesville teams. Boys and girls are combined 2-9, and you can hope they can right the ship but
it's early.
It's early, but I got a chance to see the Craig boys open the season, and a lot of kids back, a lot of talent back, and. I think for Craig, on the boys' side of it, it's just a matter of, meshing together. I mean, playing unselfish basketball.
Kind of a little bit the same as the Badgers we just talked about. They have another team that has almost everybody back from last year. So you would think, and a lot of these seniors have played together for a long time, but you got to make sure everybody kind of knows their role and buys into it.
And if you're going to go out and score 18 and I only score 2, I got to be okay with that, and
you'll get yours the next game.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you got to be, and I think you got to put the selfishness aside and just go out and play, because the talent's there. I mean, those kids have all played together not only in the last 3 seasons, but they played together in summer ball as well. So, and I think as far as the girls, Craig and Parker both, sliding a little bit right now, but it's early, and I think when you're as young as those 2 teams are,
you expect
some of that. And
the problem has been, I think, for both teams, they've just been so turnover prone early on, and you'll expect that with, I guess, some young teams too. But you got to take care of the ball to kind of cover up some of your other young deficiencies. And so far, both teams have turned the ball over a lot.
2 men.
And you go through some long stretches where it's just kind of rough. But long season ahead of them, I think. We said from the beginning, both teams were going to be a lot better in February than they were going to be here at the start of the season. And I think it's just a matter of kind of keeping your head up, and not getting frustrated just because you got a couple losses on the season already early on.
And you had pointed out coming in, on a sad note, but a shout out to Courtney Shanebeck, who evidently tore ACL and will obviously be lost for the season, and as good a ball player as I've seen the last couple of years. And I hope the recovery's a good, speedy one, and all things go, because she's a kid that will play at the next level.
Yeah, I think you don't like to see injuries ever, especially not early in the year, and to players that of that caliber
are impactful like she is. Anybody, but she's an impactful player that on a team that was gonna make some noise, I think, throughout the year.
And maybe they still will. They had a lot back, but we'll see how that kind of affects the Rock Valley. Some other teams that in the Rock Valley, I think both Clinton teams, I think early on are looking pretty good. The boys team beat Delavan Darien on Monday, and the Comets coach said, they look legit. A lot of those athletes that were on the football team, part of that basketball program. Tyler Halstead's on that team, and they've got Gracie Elney, who came on the scene last year, and I think the girls team too a lot back. So maybe the Clinton is a team to watch. Maybe
that whole Clinton program is just doorbusters now. They're good at everything.
Perhaps speaking of that, and perhaps not. We'll see, but you'll have to tune in Sunday to pick up your Gazette for sure on Sunday, because we'll have the all area football team, and we'll also have our Player of the Year that we do annually. So all that'll be in Sunday's Gazette. And
we went with a long snapper this year. It was tough for us, but we went with a long snapper from the
don't give it away.
The homeschool
don't
Eagles.
Give it away.
Well, I didn't want to give it away, but
it's the cat's out of the bag.
Timmy had a really good year for them, and he was an excellent long snapper, so congrats to him.
I thought we were holding off on this until Sunday to have it be a surprise, but whatever. That'll do it for this week's episode. We'll be back to break down maybe some of these sports that really get underway when we'll have a chance to kind of see what happens in the first week and get our base under us and know what's going on a little bit more with wrestling and things like that. And
one thing I did want to mention, this Saturday, Janesville Parker will be hosting its first annual Kramer Brown Invitational Wrestling Tournament, and that's in honor of longtime coach Ron Kramer and his longtime assistant Ron Brown, who were instrumental in that program, just being where it was and dominating the scene for more than 2 decades. So a good chance for for Parker to give back to those longtime coaches who meant so much to the school and the programs up there. So that'll take place Saturday morning at Parker High School, and you get a chance if you like good wrestling. There's some good teams there, and on the other side of town that day you've got the Craig boys hosting a swim invite. So got something to do Saturday morning before all the action starts.
We're giving you another thing.
We got something else for you to do. So get to Parker or Craig and enjoy that before you sit down. And
I do hope they're not calling it the first annual, though, because that's not a thing.
That's not a thing, no. It's like a new record. You don't set a new record. It's a record.
Just the first.
Right.
But, yes, good on them for getting that started. Catch us next week. You can leave us a review on YouTube or iTunes, or shoot us an email to sports@gazetteextra.com, or find us on Twitter. We'll be out at games and stuff throughout the week.
We will.
So you can, we'll help you keep up. I'll even be on the radio Friday because Josh Goldberg needed a color guy for the Craig Sun Prairie game. So you can check that out Friday night if you're sitting around. And we'll be back here next week. Thanks to Kevin McLeod for the tunes, Dave Vaughn for producing the show, and go Badgers in get a Big Ten title.
Take care, everybody. Go Bucky.